Hi, Jewish mom. So I wanted to talk this week a bit about marriages. I've been having marriage on my mind because right now, because I'm married, but also because in my chabur with Rabbi Niven, we're talking now about working with sort of husbands who are imperfect. Husbands who have issues that we want to work on. We want to help them work on their issues. So basically this whole week, like in the Chabura, and so last few weeks, I've been hearing from different women about issues that they have in their marriages. And so Rabbi Niven's just been saying, just how often he sees, so basically every human being is imperfect. All wives are imperfect and all husbands are imperfect. And so an imperfect couple, marry each other, and how we can, deal with. I think that all of us are, just as we are imperfect, our husbands are imperfect, and so I think that there's probably a scale of people, like the different issues that women listening to this are coping with. So I just want to tell two stories which I thought were really interesting, and I thought might be helpful to a lot of people listening. Um, One story was something interesting that I read this week in Family First magazine. They have a column in Family First called Advice Line, where people present difficult questions, and then three experts answer the questions. So this week a woman wrote in. It's very interesting. She said that her husband is a real Talmid Chacham, like a Torah scholar, has incredible midot, like a real mensch, a wonderful guy, and really, and a great husband. She said, but one thing is that she notices that in fact based on her, education, she has a better knowledge of halacha, of Jewish law, than her husband. And this is really, really frustrating to her. Her husband is a rabbi. Her husband's like a Torah scholar, like this really highly respected person, and she feels like it's embarrassing that he'll say something to, like, the daughter will ask a question regarding how regarding whether something permitted or not permitted on Shabbat, and her husband will say something that's incorrect, right? So it puts her like in an uncomfortable situation. Like, her husband, the great Torah scholar, doesn't really know practical halacha as well as she does. So there are a bunch of interesting responses. But one thing that really sort of made an impression on me, there was one woman who responded, and she said that there's a mistaken perception that women have. She said, we think that, in our society, in Orthodox society, how does someone become a rebbetzin? A woman becomes a rebbetzin by marrying a rabbi. So we think that a woman becomes a tzaddikus, a tzaddikah, a holy woman by marrying a tzaddik. So sometimes women have this mistaken impression that, how am I, like, a woman who yearns to be a tzadikah, to be like the holiest woman possible, ends up nudging her husband that he should be more perfect. But she said, how do you really become a tzaddikus? How do you really become a tzaddikah? Right? How do you do it? She said, how you do that is by accepting your husband for who he is, and working and teaching yourself to focus on his good traits, on his strengths. Rather than making yourself into a tzaddik, by making your husband into the perfect husband, so that I can be best, so I can be the tzaddik, it's married to the tzaddik, so I can be, Rebbetzin Kanievsky married to Raz Kanievsky, let's say. But no, she says, your goal is your husband, with his flaws and with his imperfections and with his limitations, that you will build him up, and that you will accept him, and appreciate his. So this woman, I guess she has an easy situation. Her husband is a great Talmid Chacham, a real mensch, a wonderful husband, and he's not the greatest. He doesn't know so much about practical halacha, but she will be the biggest tzaddik by really focusing on his positive traits. Um, Another story I want to tell. It's something that I heard many years ago, and it was a woman who was giving a class on marriage, and she told the following story. She said that there was a story of a girl, a young woman who got married, and she married a boy who was in Kollel. And so one night, it's like they just gotten married a few weeks before, and one of her classmates got married, one of her classmates from seminary. So she knew that all of her newly married classmates, all of them, their husbands would be there, and they would all be sort of like, there in like their new shaitels or whatever, and their new outfits left over from Shever B'chot, and they would all be saying, "Oh, my husband's here, my husband's here," and oh, da and talking about marriage. And but her husband had to go to Seder Erev. Her husband had to go to night Seder, and so it was very, very difficult for her. It was very difficult for her. She knew she was going to be the only girl from her class going to the wedding on her own. But she decided, okay, Misiut Nefesh, self-sacrifice, self-sacrificing for her husband's Torah learning. She went on her own. She walked the whole way. It was in sort of an industrial area. She found her way on her own in the industrial area of wherever, and she went there on her own. She sat with other classmates, and all of the classmates' new husbands were there on the men's side, and she was the only one there on her own. And she came home almost crying, but knowing, okay, but no, I did this. I did this for the Kvodo Shel Torah, and I did it to honor the Torah and to support my husband's Torah learning, and this is so important. And this is one of the first steps in building a true Torah home, a Beit Ne'eman B'Yisrael. That I went to the wedding on my own, and my husband went to yeshiva, went to Beit Midrash, and learned Torah, and is going to become a great rabbi and a great Talmid Chacham. And she comes into her apartment, and what does she see? She sees her husband with a pile of sfarim, a pile of books. Her husband like this, snoring on top of his Sifrei Kodesh, which he never even opened that whole night. Her husband had never even left the house, just fallen asleep. So the woman who was speaking, the speaker, she said, and that's it. That was the true Mesiut Nefesh, the true self-sacrifice. And it's just a powerful story. I mean, I think that when with husbands, learning how to not expect them to be the perfect, not expecting them to be the greatest Rav Kanievsky, or like the Rav Kanievsky equivalent in your community, just accepting our husbands and seeing our husbands' strengths and working with them, and loving them for who they are, just as we hope that our husbands will love us for who we are, and and see our strengths and our weaknesses as we all have. And so in summary, I want to bless all of the Jewish moms. We should remember that to become a great holy woman, a tzedikah, tzedekes, it's not like becoming a rabbi so you marry a rabbi. To become a tzedikah, tzedekes, you do that by accepting your husband, and by seeing despite his weaknesses, and despite the imperfections, and despite the disappointments, right? Seeing through, and seeing this person's seeing his strengths, and seeing who he is, just like that. Just like the newly married girl who went to the hall and then came back, and she found her husband snoring on his Sifrei Kodesh, right? So like that's the way to build true greatness is to see through. True greatness in us, and I think also in our husbands, is to see. Is despite the disappointments, like to continue to force ourselves to continue to focus on our husband's strengths and abilities. So I want to bless all of you Jewish moms with an amazing, amazing week. Kol Tov.